Hello, hello. Welcome to another amazing episode of Be Open and Authentic with us. With Rohit. So, so today we have Andrew Walton with us, who is an expert coach for professional cricket players, and is a founder, advisor, and mentor for so many players. So, to sum it up, Andrew does a lot of things in different domains, so which I can't really cover in one episode. So I think I need like 10 or more episodes to do to cover what Andrew has done and what Andrew wants to do. So I think there's just a lot to cover. So, but for this episode, I really want to get into the coaching style and the coaching ways of coaching for the professional players, and want to understand what it takes for a player to be, at the professional level and then perform at the professional level. So, and I think it's the possibility of having this chat with Andrew is just the right way to go about it. So thanks, Andrew, for taking time to chat with me today. And I still don't know how you are managing all of these things, but we will talk this over the time. But yeah, thanks for that.
Rohit, look, thank you for having me on. Appreciate the chance to have a discussion with you. And normally we'd be, today's October the 13th, if that's okay to include the date,
Sure.
And normally we'd be well and truly into the cricket season, yet Melbourne today, it's a cricket jumper day today, Rohit. It's very cool here and overcast, so rarely do we get the chance to pull the long sleeves out, so we've got that in place, and so we're a little bit behind in preparation here from regular cricket. Yet it's a wonderful time though, because the World Cup is on. There's lots of excitement of teams of different parts of the world coming together, and cricket is one of those things, Rohit, that no matter where we are, it creates a thread to bring us all together.
I know, just like this episode, right? I'm in Seattle, enjoying this weather where it is supposed to rain, and you are in Australia where you are suffering from rain, where it has to be sunny. But yeah, so this is a community, and I think. I don't know how, maybe it's the same with other games that I just don't know. But people who are into cricket, they are really passionate about it, and just live and breathe cricket. I'm one of those persons.
We are very blessed in Melbourne that we have an amazing intercultural and multicultural society, and there are so many people from the Sri Lankan community, Afghani, Indian, Pakistan community that brings so much to the quality of cricket here now on the field, and seeing the junior players coming through, yet also off the field. The atmosphere at matches now around Australia is much more. It's very inclusive and a celebration of cultures, and really pleased that we did see that a lot with the T20 Women's World Cup, which was the last major event before COVID hit. So, to think it was 86,000 people came together to see Australia v India at the MCG, and now we've got the ICC T20 World Cup now, and it's a great celebration of the game. But
exactly, just exciting.
And cricket to me, Rohit, has been very, very kind to me my whole life. From a young boy from a small country town who learnt about wicket preparation and playing on turf at a young age, and was then able to find a way through levels in Melbourne, but then got involved in sport technology with cricket, that created a career from that, and a great partnership with Cricket Australia over many years that's progressed from web-based technology into mobile apps, live scoring and live streaming. Yet around that, I've been able to advance my own coaching qualifications, travel to India regularly, so I've been a guest coach with KIOC in Bangalore since 2014, and despite a small COVID disruption, was able to go back there again this year in May and reconnect. Yet in recent years, after completing my level 3 high performance, I've sort of gone around the circle, if you like, and I'm coaching my coaching involvements from so cricket mentoring from a personal professional level, yet in a club environment I've gone back to junior level, so I do some under 10 and under 14, 15 for girls, and also run an all abilities program in the disability space. So it's just trying to get a depth across the community and show people how cricket can be really, really valuable to them in their life. And then outside of that, yeah, it's always nice to be able to work with some of the players in the WBBL, and those who are on TV occasionally, just to keep your skills and thinking in good order. So, how do you get time to do? Well, you find time if it's something you're passionate about. My children are coming through the enjoyment of the sport now as well. So, yeah, you find a way to make it all happen. It's not too difficult.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're blessed to have that support, from partners, family, or like from all our network to make it happen, because it's not always the case.
No, it's not. No. Yeah. And most things. Sorry, I suppose most things, even though I reeled off there, my business for many years on the technology side involved cricket. So it's been able to sort of intersect those different areas together.
Sure.
And you find that I suppose. It's now interesting if I look now at the business cycle within Cricket Australia and the various states. There are many players now in key executive positions that as players I've coached.
Oh, cool.
so sometimes like one of the new general managers in Victorian cricket, I've known him since he was 13 years old. Wow. So you sort of those relationships you're able to. To just help make things happen better, ahead.
Exactly.
But coaching, one of the questions you want to know about the journey as a coach, how it all started?
So let me take it through. So, but yeah, before we go there. So just I think you covered all aspects of cricket, right? You were a player, you're on the coach, you are on the business and technology side of it, and then using cricket to help in the community. Mm-hmm. I think just all roundedness of the game that you are involved in. I think that's very interesting to observe. So, and I think this is also how you can solve the problems with the technology, right? So the domain ins and out, and also you have all those connections to make it happen. So it's all about finding a problem and solving for it. So I think which you're already doing with be it cricket mentoring or some other companies that you worked with. So which is very very cool. Thanks for doing all of it.
No, that's fine. But ultimately, Rohit, it all comes down to people. It all comes down to being able to relate, be relatable to people, no matter whether they're coaching a state team or a Big Bash team, or it's a parent in the under-10s whose son is nervous to get out of the car to come and play his first game because he's never played cricket before. And it's just having, I suppose, it's probably learning now, it's more about having a good depth of personality skills in encouraging people to find their way. Whereas if I go back, I suppose when I first started coaching many years ago, it was about, and I don't like using the word technique, but it was about that side of the game, more skills rather than the character, the personal, which is probably more, which is much more important now because the skills can come.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree on it. So before we dive a little more deeper into it, I just want to understand how your journey with coaching started. And firstly, based on what I learned, you started in the business development and sales, and you eventually made into coaching. I know you were a player earlier. Maybe that's how you have all the skills. But how did you navigate into the coaching and become all the way up to the level 3 performance coach, which is a big thing?
Yes, my coaching journey sort of started last century with a suburban club called South Yarra Cricket Club. And for those watchers, Rohit, who are fans of cricket journalism, Gideon Haigh, the esteemed international cricket writer, that's his club, South Yarra Cricket Club. So in 1993, they were looking for. I'd been playing there for a few years and had been playing reasonably well as a bat, and they wanted to just do things a little bit differently. So they approached me to be coach of the club, and for the princely sum of $2,000, Rohit, I agreed to take that on. But when you're the coach of a suburban club, and that was 4 teams on turf. Yes, you are the coach of the club, but you're also the head of selectors. You have to roll the wickets for practice. You roll the wickets for the match. You make little afternoon teas there on game day. So the time for coaching is actually relatively minimal when you break it down. Through that experience, we were able to do a few things a little bit differently and had some success as a group in that time. And towards the end of, I suppose, the late 90s, I sort of had decided, well, I wouldn't mind testing myself further. And next to, on the ground next to us at South Yarra, Paran Cricket Club used to play their thirds and fourth grade. And I was approached by Paran to consider coming across there and being involved with their junior development program. I hadn't been involved with Premier Grade cricket before, so I went to Paran for 2 years. And true story, my first meeting at Paran was pre-season, and at Toorak Park, and I walked through the door next to a fellow. His name's David, and David said, "Hi, I'm David. I'm from Perth, Wanneroo. Just got to Melbourne. Was trying to find his way through cricket." That was David Hussey, and and just through that interaction, we were the new kids on the block, so to speak. I was only playing lower grades. He was playing in the higher grades. But as happens in cricket, when you're new in an environment, you tend to sort of gravitate towards each other. And down the path, we're still friends to this day and have the occasional communication at times. But
nice.
Then, so running the junior program there, then went to Richmond for a few years. I went to Richmond for 3 years and was still playing and captaining, but coaching with their junior group, and that was to sort of prepare the players who'd come out of what was called Dowling Shield into that sort of next level through. And Richmond back then was a fairly strong club with a number of players already in the Victorian sort of framework, and for me it was a great learning environment to go. And then from there I had the chance to start coaching Premier Grade club level, so I coached Hawthorn, Monash, Fitzroy, Doncaster, Paran, and then Melbourne Cricket Club, so over my 12 years in grade cricket, and was able to work with players at all levels of all types. And I sort of look back now and reflect on some of the scorecards. I remember in my first year at Hawthorn, Monash as it was then, we made the finals against Dandenong, a local team here, and the opening attack for Dandenong was Peter Siddle, Darren Pattinson, and James Pattinson. Nice. So that was a pretty sort of handy team. We didn't win the game, but it was a great experience for the boys. Yet over the years, then moving into the experience through Paran and Melbourne, had the good fortune to work with many players at a very high level. Paran for me was a masterclass. I couldn't believe that I was the coach of the club, yet here I am learning from Chris Rogers, Dave Hussey, Dimitri Mascaronis, Bryce McGain, who'd all played international cricket, and here I am throwing balls to them and catching balls and that. But it was a masterclass in learning things. And then after that, with Melbourne, the MCC, where you walk into Melbourne Cricket Club, and their expectation of players who come into that environment is you are going to play for Australia.
Yeah.
And there's an example there. So this is not long ago, but my years there were. So Will Pekowski was still a junior player then. I think Will had only played 6 first grade games. He was still under 19. Sammy Harper was coming through the ranks. Yet we had a young player then called Fergus O'Neill, who I think was 14 then. Oh. And he made his debut for Victoria last week in their pace bowling quartet. And Fergus was always a talent. Yeah, this is where it's interesting, because when he first came to the club, he was a very young. His body hadn't developed quite yet. He was very good with the bat. And then in his second year, he was playing lower grades. I said to the captain, he actually bowls like these little medium paces all right. Let's just see where he goes. And I had no idea he'd become a new ball bowler and a fast bowler as he grew up. But that's just a snapshot of some of the the really exciting sort of experiences that you can have. Yeah. And then also there's tough times as well, Rohit, where you're working in a club environment and a player who may be in the first class level, and they're coming on the way back, and you sort of having to navigate those waters as well. And then the story which we'll touch on later on is, I was very, very fortunate 13, 14 years ago, and spending a couple of years with Glenn Maxwell when he was finding his way as a young man at the age of 18, and he's certainly had an excellent career. But from all those experiences, and then you throw into that the chance to go to India and be a specialist coach at KOC in Bangalore, to do work now with cricket mentoring for 5 years, to be able to coached teams in the disability, visually impaired, oral ability space. It's incredibly rewarding. Rewarding.
I'm sure, because and the interesting part is you coached at all levels, and at all the clubs, and probably you have seen it all from where players just come off as the kids, and now they are representing all the countries are playing big leagues like devdutt padikkal, where you coached him in the KYC, and helping Maxwell, some other people who are representing the international cricket, which is very interesting, right? Because it's also it's like something that you put your heart into, and that materializes very quickly, and it has a bigger impact. So I'm sure that is such a rewarding experience, right?
Yeah.
And yep. And just want to understand, like, among all these experiences that you had, be it with Maxwell or some Indian cricketers or David Hussey or any professional cricketer, just want to understand what is your best, or what is your best experience as a coach, or something that you are really happy with.
There's many that come to mind, but probably a few that stand out. The Melbourne Renegades defeated the Stars in the BBL a few years ago, and to see in that match players like Sebastian Gotch, Sam Harper, Chris Tremaine, Glenn Maxwell sort of all come together with their various teams. Yet after the match, the Renegades players all came back on the ground, and I've got a photo. So Chris Tremaine is a good friend, and I got a photo of Chris holding my two sons at the end of the match, which was quite pleasing, because Chris was a player who really wasn't regarded as being a T20 player as such. Yet he found he had an incredible ability to adapt to any situation, and that was pleasing for him. To see Glenn Maxwell and devdutt padikkal batting together for RCB one night late on TV, and seeing them together was quite remarkable. Seeing Sam Harper come back from, some people sort of overlooked that Sam Harper had a very, very serious concussion when he was accidentally struck by Jake Lehman in a Shield match a long, long time ago, and that was a really dark period, not just for Sam, yet for his whole family, about where things may have emerged. But to see him recover from that experience and get back to play at the highest level has been extremely just proud of the young fella and in how he's came through. But then also, I had a small brief experience in coaching Premier Women's Cricket, and seeing players come through like Taylor Vlamink and Sophie Molyneux and Rhiannon O'Donnell, who observed in that period, had some things to do with when you see how they're able to progress just by their own talents, not trying to be something else, and once they get that chance in good conditions on the big stage, they do flourish. But they're probably the high-profile ones, Rohith. But on the other side, in my under-10s group, so Francesca Head is as an 8-year-old when she was at the end of her first season with the under-10s, and to have Francesca play in our group as a mixed team. Francesca's one of two girls, and for Francesca to be recognised by her teammates not as a girl, Francesca was the opening bat and leg spin bowler. So that to me shows that the kids are accepting more of that. They're not seeing gender or any barriers. But the pleasing part of that was that by the end of the year, Francesca was scoring off the back foot through the offside better than her older brothers. So when you see moments like that, Rohith, you go, that's really rewarding from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, that's great. And then one thing I really like is you are equally rewarding, all the professional accomplishment with the smaller things. Even if they're not really small, but they're just feel good things that you can observe and cherish, right? I think you got a great heart. And thanks for sharing all of it. Yeah,
that's as a coach, you just hope that you can put little bits in place, and even though I played the game at a very modest level, Rohit. I would love to have played for Australia and played first class cricket, but I was never good enough to play. In my mind I was, but physically not capable. Although I still can't help myself with a ball and just have this muscle memory. So I suppose my coaching philosophy or my coaching method revolves around decision making and movement patterns. And I figure that if I can help a player in those areas and then attune that philosophy around what their needs are, and sometimes the best work has been done when you're not throwing a ball or catching a ball. It's how you might be planning with the player, why they need to do something, how they're going to do it, and what their expectation is. And if you're able to capture, and build a good relationship through that emotional and mental connection, it can go a long, long way. So it's more than just having to hit 1,000 balls a day to become a better player. There's more ways of doing that. And just probably an example of an example that's firsthand, which I still relate to many times, is Will Pikoski on match day. Will Pikoski on match day, through our involvement, he wouldn't hit balls on match day. He would be there for the warm up. He'd watch the other players hitting up. He'd observe. He'd be participate. He'd catch balls through. Yet he would believe that once he walked in the door on game day, his preparation was right. The only ball he needed to focus on was the first ball in the match.
Interesting.
Whereas other players might need to hit. So I'll give an example there. In my time, I spent some time at Middlesex, and Owen Morgan used to like a certain routine with tennis balls and then cricket balls on game day, just to have his hand, the bat plane and the hand position going well, and that's fine. Everyone's different. Yet, and that was a way to connect with him, because he liked to be able to go aside and, Andy, I want to do these drills. Fine, let's do these drills, and then you'll go join the group. Whereas other players like to be around and have that, that noisy sort of pump up type situation. But as a coach, though, right, it's understanding what works well for the player to ultimately perform in a space that they're happy with.
Agree. So this is the interesting part, right? What works well for a player, and then getting used to their way of playing is I think incredibly challenging. Because, for example, at least some of the coaches have seen, if you go and ask for coaching help, if it's a spin bowling or pace bowling, so they normally they don't always understand how you are performing, or like what's your technique of bowling. It's more like, hey, do these drills, this is the technique that you should follow, and this is how you can get all the turn, or this is how you get the right wrist movement. Right, but maybe it's great, maybe it's the basics, getting basics right, which is great, but not everyone can follow the basics or has to follow the basics, because we have seen different players who can play, doesn't always play the standard way, but who can whack the balls of the park with an ease, right? So like what's your take on it, or what's your approach on this one?
I think it's being, as a coach, it's being accepting that players have different ways where they can learn to improve. And yes, if you're in the pathway in the representative space, you'll have a structured program of work that players need to do. I get that. Yet more often than not, the players make a greater level of improvement when they're in an environment where they can be playful and experiment and be friendly. And we've now got some celebrated examples in players like Lasith Malinga, Jasprit Bumrah, Mahendra Dhoni, that so much of their formative years was not in a structured cricket environment. It was playing with a tennis ball, or playing with a taped tennis ball, or playing corridor cricket, or playing something where they're able to adapt. At the end of the day, they have proven that when their body's fully developed and they're in that space, they can do what needs to be done. They can hone the ball into a space on a target. They can make contact with the ball that can go anywhere around the ground. I mean, Glenn Maxwell, I can assure, as a 18-year-old, he was practicing, like he wasn't coming to practice and taking up other players' time in reverse sweeping he would do that in his own time. So generally, he would be one of the first people. So most practice sessions at Shrams Reserve Fitzroy, when I was coach, if I was there at 4:15 and practice started at 5:15, he was already there before me.
Yeah.
And he would be, sometimes I'd see him there, he'd be practicing his method of hitting a ball different angles just by standing at the crease with his bat and a ball. And then if someone else came along to throw balls, he was happy as. Yet it's the players who are doing the work that's needed in a fun, playful space outside of the structured practice areas. That's where I suppose I find that the improvement really comes from, because you've got to have that sort of balance, because not every coach we could line up 10 different coaches here. We'd all have a different aspect on how something or what could be done. Yep. And we're possibly all right, yet I could guarantee that half of the coaches would be reflecting on what they've done, whereas the other half may have the empathy to understand what the player needs.
Yeah, which is very important, right?
Oh, it is, because look, there's no disrespect, but there are. I know, for example, I'll never be asked to coach at the highest level because I haven't played the game. I haven't played, and that's okay. There's no objection to that. Yet I feel that there's things I can teach players that aren't. I'm not going to try and replicate how to make 100 MCGs because I've got no idea how that would. I haven't had that first-hand experience. But some players don't necessarily need to know from a technical perspective how to do it. They just need to know ways to concentrate, to stay calm within themselves, to manage. I mean, one of the best lessons I ever received on batting under pressure was from Mike Hussey, who spoke about breathing. He spoke about this, in his case, was that the 6-second gap you've got, that no matter what game you're playing, T20, white ball, test cricket, at the end of every ball, there's at least 6 seconds. Okay. 6 seconds that you've got to yourself.
Unless Jadeja or someone else is bowling.
Well,
just kidding.
But you can control that.
Sure, yeah, just kidding. But
and Mike spoke about, you can do what you want. Look, you walk square leg, but you've got, as a batter, you've got 6 seconds minimum to take control of where you're at. And his whole thing was more about, well, in that 6 seconds, if I can get 2 good deep breaths in, my calm comes back. I control my heart rate, and I stop trying to get ahead of the game. So, being able to sort of just to finish on that, right? Being able to sort of help players find what is that, how does that look, what does it feel like, and having them remember more about, okay, if that day, if that match, if that moment works well for you, why is that? Like, how did you feel? What did it smell like? What did it look like? Like, what was going on? And that becomes as important than how high your elbow is or your wrist position on the ball sometimes, because that comes naturally. That's an outcome of being in a good space.
Agreed. Totally agree, right? Like finding what works best for the players so that they can, keep their calm or, give their best, and letting them be, I think is more important, particularly when at the professional level, right? Because most people are already good at that level already for the most part. So now, finding a way what works best for them can take their performance to the next level.
Well, something on that which I think is a compliment to and I see this every year when I go to is that the emphasis in the Indian, and this, I mean, Greg Chappell spoke years ago about how India will be a powerhouse, because a typical, if I use Shivam Singh, so I've seen Shivam Singh at KIC since he was 8 years old, and he's now 16, 17, and he's becoming one of the best players in Karnataka as a state. Yet Shivam, from the age of 8, he was already playing under 14s. Yet from the age of 10, he's playing somewhere between 80 120 matches a year.
Whoa.
A year.
Insane.
And Shivam, he hasn't played first-class cricket yet, but in his mindset, for him, a good season as a top-order bat, he has to have made between 7 and 12 centuries a season. So before he plays first-class cricket, Shivam will have made 50, 60, hundreds in matches. And some matches are lower level, but some matches you've still got to do the work. Now, as a comparable, when I've coached Premier grade cricket in Melbourne, and I've been given a talented 17-year-old top order bat up and coming who has to bat in the top order, yet they've never made 100. And they've only played maybe 15 games in a season. Maybe 20 games most. So so my point there is that I think what we can do better is when players have hit that sort of, let's say 12, 13, 14 age bracket, and they're sort of crossing over between junior and senior, the more games they can play, the more matches they can play, the better learning environment for them. They don't need another practice session in the nets to fine-tune something. They're better off doing it in a game. So as a coach, I'd like to think that we can be better at organising that sort of environment than an indoor session because it's raining in a synthetic environment.
Agree. I mean, nothing can beat the real experience anyway, right?
Not at all.
Exactly. Cool. And when it comes to, earlier we were talking about, Ian Morgan needs to hit balls, whereas some other players doesn't even, have to hit balls, before the game, and even, the pressure point in the games, where David Hussey is, takes uses the 6 seconds to, get reset before
Next
the ball, with, taking the control, which is taking control of the game, right? So which also, I want to emphasize here on the mental aspect of the game, which is equally, or if not, sometimes is more important than the, technical skill set, right? So as a coach, what do you do to make sure, to understand players' way of, getting that calmness, or how do you train players to take that time or, space for them, in the games, and particularly in the pressure games, it's not easy where you get, easily carried away by all the pressure. But yet, most of the players like Maxwell or Dhoni, they're just like still cool-headed and, still does whatever they want to. So what is the role of coach in it, or as a coach, what you would do or would advise to, for the younger players to follow?
Firstly, as a coach, you've got to find the time in what you're providing to spend with the player and understand them as a person, where they've come from, how they've arrived at the game. And I'll give you an example there, Rohit. Like being outside Melbourne Cricket Club, the perception was that Melbourne Cricket Club just get all the best private school players and they just walk in with a God-given ability and expectation they're going to play for Australia. It would not be further from the truth. What I've learnt was that Melbourne Cricket Club have an extensive recruiting network, which I knew of, yet most of their players, particularly ones who went on and became successful, they came from small country towns, or they came from far out suburbs, or they came from places that weren't generally looked upon as being a good player will come from here. Now, generally, that being the case, and I come from a small country town, so which I'm very proud of, and which is where I learnt all my cricket. And you can always find a thread of connection with someone somewhere, and it's important to be able to, with the player, be relatable outside of the sport. So that's having an interest in where they're from, how their parents, how it all came together, why they're interested in the game, what makes them happy, what's their situation, are they studying, working, in a relationship, what that relationship looks like, how do people get enjoyment around them, and then where are they trying to, are they just trying to be the best player they can in that environment, or because having lived through an experience where, I suppose when I first started coaching at the higher level, the next step was shield matches. Well, then after that became one-day cricket, then became T20 cricket, became franchise cricket, and we're now seeing players come through the system. If I use, not having coached, but if I use Chris Green as an example, well, here you go. When I was at Fitzroy Doncaster years ago, Dirk Nanners was still playing, and in one year, in Dirk's second last year professional cricket, he played for 8 different teams professionally in one year. So that for T20 cricket, so he became a different type of cricketer. But then I look at in the current era, say a player like Chris Green from the Sydney Thunder. Well, Chris has probably got he's probably got zero aspiration to play for Australia. yet he can play at the highest level in T20 in any competition in the world, and be a very sought after player in the 100, in the Caribbean Premier League, in the BBL. And that's where, so it's about understanding for the player, where do they want, what do they want to get to. And then you've also got that also stands you in good stead, knowing more about the player personally as a character and being relatable to them, right? Because inevitably there will be difficult times, there'll be dark times, there'll be tough times for some reason. And Chris Tremaine uses a term like, you know, kicking the cans around when you're upset, when you're sort of like not in a happy space. Well, you've also got to be able to find a space of comfort with the player. So it's not just a coach-player relationship; it's a person-to-person relationship. So to do that, you have to find time to go for a coffee or have a drink of water or walk a lap at the park, or you might get up at 6:30 in the morning and spend half an hour together on the rowing machine or stretching or whatever it may be. But generally something which is not cricket related, so you're able to break down that barrier and let that player express themselves. And probably the biggest thing overall, and this is where it took me a long time to learn this, but as a coach, you actually end up becoming, you end up creating a better environment that's happier and more successful when you say less.
Yeah, interesting.
And part of that is having a good relationship with the senior players in your group, and they become the enablers. They become the voices of reason. They become the influencers, because when it comes down to it, and I think I'd look upon it typically in a great cricket environment that Thursday night. So if we were playing Saturday and Sunday, Thursday night, when I walked out of the rooms as a coach, my job was done.
Yep.
We'd done our practice, done our skills, we'd planned, we understood what position we were in, we understood the opposition. It was now, okay, Captain Matthew, this is your show. This is now you. And I'm there on game day. I'll throw balls, I'll catch balls. If there's any sort of conflict needs to be managed with anybody, I'll handle. I just want you players to have as enjoyable, as positive experience on game day as possible. And when things arise that need to be sorted out, you work it out.
Yep.
You work it out, understand in the moment, hey, some things will work and some things won't. That's okay. And we can talk about that not necessarily after the game. In fact, most matches post-match, I'd say nothing.
Yep.
And interestingly, I remember particularly in the time with Middlesex when Richard Scott was the coach then, and after most games, Scotty would say zero. He would sit. He'd be with the players, yet he would let them work it out and have the discussions. He may then have, and I learned from him that, okay, you might have a quiet word with someone in the corner beforehand, or in that dressing room, people like at the time, so Owen Morgan and Chris Rogers, Dawid Malam were probably the leaders of that group at the time, Toby Rowland-Jones, and he might have had one of them assigned to speak about a certain issue. But then the coach does the work during the week, away from the game, because there's too much there's too much emotion on game day that can flow through different. Some people can reason with it, and some people need to sort it out. So so that's the other part. And I think from experience now that also helps you build a better relationship with your players, because you're not like in their face all the time. You're not sort of demanding. So that's I suppose.
Yeah. So I think the interesting part here is, the leadership lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say much when you create the atmosphere to say less, right? It's more about, doing all the work and letting people, or letting players or anyone, figure out and be the enablers.
Yeah.
Which means that your job as a coach or as a leader is done, right? You do all the work, behind and let them take the lead and or the charge, which is very good. And also I like this, having that personal relationship with player. Mm-hmm. So which is, in fact, even, important at the, business or the, company level, mm-hmm. which most people doesn't do, at least in my field. Because it's more about, just getting the work done than, developing the relation, and then, maintaining it for longer. But yeah, I think that is something to take away, not just for coaching, but at all levels.
Yeah.
So, since we, spoke about, understanding the player to help them nurture or to help them maintain the mental mm-hmm. calmness that they mm-hmm. need. Mm-hmm. But as a player, what are the things that I can do, to have that level of calmness or to have that level of mindset, needed for a professional player? Let's say I walk to you, I don't have any, we don't have any, background yet, but I just, maybe I'm just reaching out to you for a quick session, I'm playing in a different tournament,
yep.
but I'm trying to understand, what it takes. So what would you say to players like me?
Yeah, well, I think you've got to have an understanding of what is the point of difference, or what is the value that you can bring into a team structure. Because if you can get, not every player is the same, and not every player is the same shape, and not every player is. Glenn Maxwell got himself back into the first class environment initially as a 19-year-old after being kicked out as a 17-year-old.
Yep.
Not on his batting or bowling, on his fielding. He was recognised as one of the best fielders because he rarely dropped a catch, but his throwing was so accurate. And because of that, the captains and the coaches wanted him around the group. Now, once you're back around the group, then the rest can flow from there. But that at that time in his career, that was his point of difference. Now, if I use sort of current requirements, I mean, we do know that if a player is going to step into the sort of first-class professional scene, there are some metrics and measurements that they do have to. Now, it's not necessarily runs or wickets or etc. like that, but it's more about, okay, there's a basic level of fitness. Mm-hmm. There's the 2K time trial, which is a universal standard, and generally, if players are in that 6 minute 30 to 6 minute 50 bracket, they're going okay. That's a pretty good level of fitness. If they're in the 7 minute 30 sort of bracket, it's acceptable, it's okay. If they're beyond 8 minutes for 2Ks, then the coaches start to think, okay, not the question about their capability, but can they back up for the second spell, for the second hour, for the second day, for the third day? Can they give repeat efforts? So there's got to be you don't have to be a sprinter, but you've got to achieve a base level of fitness to do it. There are players, the Sam Harpers, the Glenn Maxwells, they're in the mid-low sixes. They're elite sort of runners. But, Peter Siddle will always come in, 7:20, 7:30, which is respectable, which is fine. You just got to find where you are. And anyone can do that. You just got to go ass track and run around, and you'll find out where you're at. I think also a player's got to understand their strengths as to what sort of player they are. We're seeing Tim David right now as a current example. Brilliant. Tim David is a power hitter who comes into the middle order. And if I use Dan Christian's example here. So Greg Shippard, very good friend. He'll explain to me that Dan Christian, when they brought him into the Sixers, typically Dan's requirement was to bat after the 12th or 13th over. And if he could get through six balls, they had no doubt that the balls after the sixth ball, the majority he faced were boundaries.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the point is, though, that if Dan got out before the sixth ball, it was okay. It was fine. Yeah. There was no concept of failure. That was okay. It was fine. So you take that out of the player's psyche straight away, that he knows that, I've just got to be in a space where by the sixth ball, I'm ready to go. Now, that's a different way of looking at what value does a player bring to the team. Then if I compare that to, say, a Tim David that we're seeing now, Tim David has developed a skill set where he knows he can hit a six in the first ball he faces.
Yeah.
Now, Rohit, I grew up in an environment where you had to play yourself in.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing to see. So it's as a player, it's understanding how do I fit? And to Tim David's credit, he's got a physique and a body shape that allows him to do that. So he understands that. That's tremendous. Glenn Maxwell, he plays 360 degrees, and we all get carried away with the great sixes and so on. Yet more often than not, he's able to bat around the whole field because he's trying to manipulate the field to create the gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good when the sixes happen, but he wants Josh Butler to put three men behind point on the offside, so he can then go in a different direction. So it's understanding the value of what you do bring to the side, what you do bring to the team. Josh Hazlewood has learned that a great example of a player who is so strong in his concentration and ability to execute consistently, yet subtly he's able to change his grip on the ball just differently that can alter the speed. So he's a player who's comfortable enough to move up and down the gears of speed.
Yep. And
he's now found that... Now remember that Josh Hazlewood, about a year and a half ago, was not regarded a T20 cricketer.
Yeah.
He had an amazing season in the IPL, then had the World Cup last time, and all of a sudden now he's one of the first picks. So it's recognising where the value as a player can be. Fitness, mental, handling the moment, having a game plan, but the foundation of skills behind that to be able to back those things up.
Yeah, so it's all aspects, right, that you mentioned. Fitness, mental, or game awareness, or...
game sense.
Yeah, game sense, and the strategy or game awareness, right? So which is not always easy to gain.
No, the other thing too, I think the other thing just on that, also to throw in there, Rohit, is and learned this from when Will Pekoski was coming through, was having a conscious awareness of, okay, if you've got aspiration to get to the next level, what is it that's all like you have to replace somebody.
Yep.
And that replacement, that could occur from injury, from illness, from form, it's outside of your control. But I suppose you've got to have an awareness. Okay, if I'm going to be picked in this environment, what is it that I'm going to be picked for?
Yeah.
Now, just to go back a little, up until Will was 18 or so years old, he'd more often than not he'd bat at number 3 or number 4. Yet he's opened the batting in a Test match for Australia. He's now opened the batting in Shield cricket. So all of a sudden he'd gone through all his junior cricket, being a very, very good player, no question at all, as a top order bat. Now all of a sudden you're the opening bat. Yeah. So you've got to be able to recognise that, okay, if I'm going to make a step to that next level, this is where I need to get to. Devdutt, I remember at KOC, Devdutt, all the junior stuff, he used to bat number 3, number 4. And he was quite okay with that, but now he's become an opening bat in T20 cricket. So it's just recognising when you get to that stage of what's next, where you go, where and how do you fit, and being ready that when the chance comes, you can adapt to that situation. Yeah,
makes sense. So I think having a sense of what or where you can be and being ready for it is probably very important. And somehow whenever you say these sort of examples, I'm also trying to correlate, just naturally correlating how it works in the real world as well. When you are growing into a leadership role, or when you are changing company, or getting a promotion. So, you also have to have some prep work for it, right? You need to prove yourself that you are there, but once you reach to that level, and being prepared for it is a different ball game, right? So once you're ready, once you're prepared for it, it just comes naturally, and you can excel at that particular job or promotion, which is very interesting. And I'm always, I think from the episode with Adam, I'm always interested to see how the examples from cricket or any sport can be applied into real time. So these two are not different things. It's just that we are looking things, at these things differently, but everything is pretty much the same. World will be a better place if everyone, thinks they are part of the team and contributing for the goodness of others. these are just random thoughts that comes to my mind whenever we talk about these examples, because the applications of these examples can be at much broader level.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, backing up a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as a player, right? How can one understand their strengths and weakness, and how should they go about it?
Yeah.
Because Maxwell, their strengths are maybe hitting all around the park, but maybe they also have some weakness that they want to work on, or maybe batting for longer. So how do they approach, or how do you think they should approach, from the coach standpoint?
Very, very good. Excellent question, Rohit, and I'll give you some practical example there. Players of the modern era have one of the best tools possible available to them to give them some information.
Yep.
Phone, they can use video, they can use for images, and they can either use AI tools to measure how they look, and they can compare themselves against other players. Yep. That's wonderful. I'm all for that. However, and this is what I've seen the success in players, it's then those players who are prepared to pick up one of these. And once they pick up a pen, and then pick up a book, and they'll keep a journal, and they'll keep a diary, and they'll write things down. And what they'll do is they'll hardwire a link from what they've seen, observed, or thought about. They'll let it sit inside their mind, and then they'll create this connection between their mind, their thinking, and their reflecting in a book. And they'll write down what it may be. And that's where they understand that, okay, when I'm going well, these things are happening. When I'm not going well, these things are happening. And it's the players who consciously make that happen, who regularly are the ones who you see are at the top end of the tree when it comes to eventual outcomes. Now, and sometimes, and it's also, I know we do use the term strengths and weaknesses, or what you're good at or what needs to improve. You can frame it in any possible way.
Yep.
It's really understanding generally what are those moments to reflect upon to ensure that something we're not that good at becomes better. A classic example there. So good friend, so Chris Rogers. It was after he played in the Ashes against England in England, and he came over for dinner one night, and I said, mate, just explain what was your role predominantly in the team, and where did you get yourself to? And he was at the peak of his career then. He basically said, my role batting the team, my role was to be there at lunch like any good opening batter. Yet my role was to be there at lunch and take care of Stuart Broad after lunch, because Stuart Broad was found to be at his most dangerous in his second or third spell. And you may be in a good position at lunchtime, but Stuart Broad could destroy things after that. So from a tactical game plan perspective, that was his role, as clear as. So not how many runs, but you got to be there to take on Stuart Broad. The second part was around understanding. He had condensed his thinking around his batting to two things. I'm either playing the ball or I'm not. Didn't matter what foot went where or how it looked, or didn't matter where the ball, if he hit the ball where. His view was, I'm either playing it or I'm not. And because he was able to bring himself down to that simplistic method of applying at the highest level he could be in Test cricket, he found that worked for him.
Sure.
And everyone's different. And Chris Rogers would be an example of a player that he had a method of playing the ball that you probably wouldn't teach a lot of people from the way he looked. Yet if you broke it down, if you break the footage down, and I've gone through the experience at the Academy in Brisbane where we've looked at players like Steve Smith and Simon Kadich against Brian Lara and Kevin Peterson, and they all look different. But if you break it down to when they're making contact with the ball, they're pretty much all the same. They're in an active position. Their head, their hands are all where they need to be. How they get there is different.
Yep.
That's okay. But the method also has to be what the player finds works well for them, and that can be built out of understanding. Well, okay, if rather than my weakness is I keep nicking the ball behind because I'm chasing the white ball. Well, okay, maybe it needs to be something as simple as, are you playing it or are you not?
Yep.
And that's okay. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I think just maybe tracking down, maybe using a journal or whatever works, but tracking down,
use
the highs and lows. Yeah. Use a journal. Use
use a journal. Understand what works well. Understand why things haven't worked well. Because sometimes it's also, Rohit, you've got to understand that there's conditions outside of your control.
Yep.
And some days you'll face a bowler and hey, it'll just be too good. It'll be an in-swinging knee roll, 135k, and well done. Move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, and I know, you've seen many players at all levels, right? And I think at certain level, as we were saying earlier, technique might be the same or the skill set might be at the same level, but yet some people or some players, easily make it to the international level, or some people who think, whose technique, is even a little lesser compared to some other people. Even those people make it to the certain, or the international level, but some others, may not make it. So, just want to understand, what are the common things that you observed in, people who, made it to the international level, or, and the others who didn't make it. And because, in my opinion, it's all about certain patterns, right? We only have, few patterns that we see over and over. If you're in the field for a long time, right? Those patterns. You can probably say, most players can make it or cannot make it. May not be super accurate, but you get a sense of what it takes for, or whether they'll be successful or not. So just want to understand your take on it.
Yeah. The player being prepared to do a volume of work by themselves in their own environment with someone else they trust or other players, other people. So doing things away from the group overall in their own time. A good point there raised in the field. And I always look for the players who, when they're in the field, they're watching and learning from others. They're not being drawn into useless banter or just joking around in the field. They're actually watching. If someone out there is batting well, learn from that. Why is that? Where are they standing? How are they approaching the bowler? Are they batting outside? What stance? What guard? Are they changing themselves every ball? But learn from what other players are doing in those conditions, and take that information back to use for yourself. So it's.
Yep. So, are you good to talk for some more time?
Yeah. So it's the players who are learning from what's going on around them, and it's also the players who are seeking the communication with other players after the game, outside the game, and if anything, a weakness sometimes is that players become withdrawn amongst themselves, and connecting with players outside of your team is one of the best learning experiences of all. So I can't sort of express that enough. The other part too is if you've got the ability to play extra games, is putting yourself in an experience where you can learn something different. And Irfan Sayed, our head coach and founder of KOC, tells a great story about how Manish Pandey, when he came back to play when he came back to play local state league cricket, he would bat at number 5. And they would say, Manish, why are you batting at number 5? Why are you best batter? He said, well, I want to learn what it's like to have to wait to take my turn, because it's probable that I'm not going to bat before Dravid, Tendulkar, VVS, so I may have to learn to sit rather than everything. So sometimes it's putting yourself in a position where you can, if you've got an awareness of what you're going into, how can you prepare yourself accordingly for that? So that's a player thinking outside themselves. They're thinking greater than, okay, not what do I need right now? What am I going to need ahead of the game? So that sort of covers the mindset, the preparation sort of thing, but learning from others around you to help sort of feed the needs that you have.
Yeah. So, just going above and beyond, certainly, and just constantly immersing themselves in the game or putting in the scenarios or trying to understand and get better is the super important quality, right?
And the last thing also is just there's so much available to players these days, whether it be meditation or yoga or mindfulness, that they can bring into their practice as a person. And it may not be directly sport or cricket related, yet having those skills to draw upon, when emotions may step to a different level, is going to help their performance in the end in some way. Or it will help them, on the other side, will also help them cope better if the performance hasn't gone so well, because they can then rationally see through something or work through something and not be drawn through on the woe is me path.
Yeah. So I think having that, may not be spiritual level of talking here, but having that mindfulness is equally important, which they can attain through tools like yoga, meditation, or, or maybe walking on the beach or whatever works best for them, right?
Walking barefoot.
Yeah, walking barefoot on the beach.
Walking barefoot. There is nothing. I would encourage all coaches at some stage, if you want to take your team, take your players for a walk around the oval, ask them before you walk, take your shoes off and go bare feet and connect yourself with be grounded with it. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling.
Totally agree. So and I also want to understand, based on your experience with Maxwell, or you may have seen many professional players going through their lows, right? Kohli had gone through the process lately, and I'm sure Maxwell has been there a couple of times, and it is. I think every player goes through ups and downs, right? But as a coach, just curious to understand, what is your role to support the player, when they are going through lows, and also want to understand what players can do by themselves to make sure that they can come back up strong.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Rohit. And the answer I give there is that a coach can play part of that, yet the player will build their confidence better and quicker if it's the players who buy into that as well. And a way of doing that is that if you spent the time building a relationship with the player away from the game, you should know something about them which is not cricket related, that's okay to be shared amongst the group. So it's not personal, it's not private, but something which might be related to where they come from, or who they've played with, or what school, or what music they like to listen to, or what books they're reading, or just something. And that's those moments when you sort of take it away from the game, and you might find that there'll be two players in a dressing room that may have no common connection at all. That's highly possible. Yet they might be both fans of reading Stephen King horror books, and they might go to the movies together and then form, and then all of a sudden you've got some momentum going where it's not just so it's just building that around the group entirely. So it's having that so the connection. I say connection is the greatest untapped advantage, and that connection comes from knowing as much about your player as they're willing to give, that can forge that connection with somebody else. And confidence can come from many areas. And all of a sudden, if that creates a connection where the player starts to smile again or laugh or be happy, then that you've sort of got over that hurdle.
Yeah. Agreed. But in terms of the technical skill set, right? In a sense, I mean, it might make them feel better. But I think if they need to come out of that bad knock or bad form, what are the things that they need to work on?
Yeah, good question. Sorry, to go back to that. So typically, I would then set up some form of time at the practice where you're able to go through game sense, and you're able to build off the strength of a player. And I like to work in drills, Rohit, where it's sets of 6, and you're setting a scenario, and the scenarios can be various. Okay, and as a coach, you've got the ability. You can have different balls. You can have cones be different areas to hit the ball into. You can create a whole different range of things that are more than just throwing a ball, letting the play. Now, sometimes that might be as simple as Owen was. I would underarm tennis balls to Owen Morgan at his hip, and he would hit them from backward square leg to mid on. And all he was trying to do was hit that tennis ball with his bat as hard as he could. Yet his swing was effortless. Yeah. It was not like trying to monster. And that was an example where something he needed to do in that space. But you can bring it back and work with a player on what might happen. But I'd always focus on, okay, let's just get it back to the things that you're good at. And, there's plenty of references like A.B. de Villiers is on the record as saying that basically every shot for him is a late block. He plays that late block, and everything comes out of that basic mindset. Every other shot comes out of it because he knows if he plays the late block, his feet are balanced. He's waited for the ball to come to him. He's waited for the last moment, so he's not extending his hands, not reaching for the ball, and so it's recognising with a player what that is, and you build up the confidence with some drills around that, and then stepping into a game sense type scenario. Okay, well if it might be if it's how am I going to hit the first ball for 6? Okay, well let's first of all, how's that going to happen for a start? Like who you're going to be facing, and get the player thinking around. All right, in a match, what are the parameters? So who am I facing, or what sort of bowler? What's the field look like? And where's my opportunities? And then you go through that process, and that might take 6 balls, might take 24, might take 60 balls. But the last part, just on that, I suppose in a synthetic environment that the nets can be, I always like to introduce some form of just mild exercise to create a fatigue sense in the play, because anybody can face the bowling machine and just smash ball after ball after ball after ball. So I like to introduce a little form of movement. Might be run half a pitch and back at a leisurely pace, not trying to, but just to get the heart rate going. Yeah. Right, and get the adrenaline running, because that then affects the thinking in the mind, and just gets the player to a level where, okay, this is what actually, if I'm talking about batting, this is what batting and scoring runs actually feels like, rather than just standing on a driving range and just trying to whack every ball out of the park. So from a technical, and then it's more about, just to finish with, it's also more about it's the quality of, if it's run making scoring, it's the quality of contact, which gets back to, all right, what works well for you to get in a position to play that ball with the best possible quality of contact that you can. It's never perfect, and some players talk about, I remember in the early days of the IPL, most boundaries were 68 to 72 metres. Yet, and that was when, that was early days of the IPL, and most players, most of the better batters, they knew that they had a hitting range between 86 to 110 metres. So you then break down and go, does it matter where the ball goes? If your range is plus 10 metres beyond the boundary, it's the quality of contact rather than, he's played that shot beautifully over mid-off for 6. Well, that may be the case, yet it's just sort of pulling it back into, right, how do I get in a position to make that contact? Do I need to open my stance and have my feet and hands spread apart, or do I need to... And so it's working on those sort of elements that can build that sort of confidence back up for a player that, if you get the right quality of contact, it doesn't matter where it goes. It's out there.
Cool. Yeah, that's true, and totally makes sense. And thanks for sharing all these, various ways that players can get back into form. Be it the drills, or it's morely a mental thing, or just figuring out what works for them, or understanding the quality of contact, or just putting themselves in the game and
it's a game sense
getting into the rhythm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's interesting. And I also want to, since you coached in Australia and India,
Yes.
where the attitude of players ranges varily, right? Because in Australia it's always chest up, it's too competitive, it's a whole different vibe than Indian team or Indian side. I mean, I think although India team is lately getting to that stage, not that they have to, but I think now the vibe is a little different. Going chest up, particularly since Kohli has taken the charge, right? So as a coach, right? Like, how do you go with it, and how do you make sure people maintain that energy or competitiveness and the chest up attitude? Or do you think, does it have to be the case, or like why?
Some confidence. It's a beautiful thing, because I love Virat Kohli's the way he just the perception of confidence and his self-determination, and over time to watch him bring that into the team and see others feed off that. And yet, ironically, Rohit, it was Rishabh Pant who hit that boundary at the Gabba to bring ultimate success for India. Where was Virat Kohli then?
Yeah.
He wasn't there. He was away back. He was away back in India. But that's a great example of the legacy and the platform, the base, the foundation of that group that Virat had put in place and instilled. That even though we all knew he was going back to India after the second test, I think it was, the players could pick that up and take that with them.
Exactly.
And Rishabh Pant, he's an expressive character, and you want to encourage that. Whereas others, Pujara probably more withdrawn, and that's totally fine. Takes all different types. So I suppose the advice there to the players is it's almost like an actor or a performer, where when the lights are on, you can become a superhero. You can become something else. You can become a different character, and then when that stops, you can just be a different person entirely. And I think Ricky Ponting gave us some great insights during the IPL he'd do these 2 or 3 minute clips at the end of each IPL match, like the post-match sort of debriefing, and you saw the players, so unscripted, unrehearsed, and you saw a whole range of different methods he would apply to ensure that everyone was recognised or rewarded in the group, whether they were the absolute superstar or the next rookie player coming through. But when the show's done, you sort of come down to a level where you can reflect comfortably on what's happened. Yet, I suppose the cycle now is that you can't get too far ahead of yourself. And some players, but to finish off with, some players, I suppose, do need that outward sort of competitiveness to exude confidence, whereas others are more sort of, you don't see Jasprit Bumrah being overly expressive, do you? I mean, he just gets the job done.
Yeah.
And that suits his method of doing things. I think Mitchell Starc sort of quite, I think, wrongly used to get criticised for his lack of emotion, if you like, but that was him just trying to stay in the mate. That's not the sort of player that he needs to be. But it's recognising, I suppose, again, as a coach, being relatable to your players and working it, because sometimes, Rohit, sometimes a player, privately, quietly, they might need a bit of a needle, in the right way. They might need a bit of a stern, not too complicated, but just a honest, eye to eye, person to person conversation, to get them back in the right sort of mindset to think, to get them back into that proper sort of mental state again. Whereas others, it's more of a quiet cajoling or encouraging, or just find a way to download or remove all the bad thoughts and just get back into a good thinking space. And sometimes that will come away from the game. So again, it's sort of like you don't do your work in the dressing room or the grandstand. Maybe you go for that walk on the beach.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a very, irrespective of the country, it's more of a personal thing and personal approach to stay in the game for the most part, right? So, and I know I know we are running out of time. Couple of things that I want to talk about, right? So if you look at the non-professional cricketers, like myself or like, millions others across, multiple countries and continents. Even though we are not into the professional cricket or not in the league of, getting anywhere professional, but still take cricket, very passionately and very seriously and goes fully into practice or, to play the local leagues and games, which makes the cricket the beautiful game, right? So, but again, we try to improve, but I think to the level that we are putting in, for the most part, since we don't have any structure around it, or since we don't have the resources or, anything around mentorship, so it doesn't always come off really well, despite, great level of practice or great level of passion and interest in the game. So what is some advice for non-professional cricketers that you can give to get better at game and learn things over time?
Yeah, sometimes an overlooked area, yet an easy one, is if you reflect upon your cricket journey, and you might want to go back and speak to a junior coach, or somebody who you've had, might be a school teacher, or might be a community leader or an elder, that might not be necessarily connected to the game directly, yet they've got the ability to understand you as a person, and they're a good, a listener. Might be someone you come across, I suppose, semi-professional or non-professional, but it's an adult. You'll come across people in business that you can find as a mentor, someone that you might have connected with. And the other part too, I mean, Rohit, available to us today, and this is really because of technology, we can connect with anybody.
Yeah,
we can find. There's the only thing stopping us from connecting with somebody who can help is ourselves. Really, overall. Although I would always encourage, though, I'm a voracious. You can see I read a lot. I've got a lot of books behind me because, one of the reasons why I read a lot is because I didn't have a chance to do a lot of schooling as a young fellow, so I look upon the chance to keep gaining knowledge through education through books, and books allows me to sort of highlight things and then write things down and keep remembering them. It also allows the mind to reset and get away from the screen, because there is for the modern player of any level, sleep is important. Sleep, rest, and recovery is very, very important. I can assure for all our listeners, when I did my level 3 high performance coaching course a few years ago, of the 58 modules we did, one of them was about sleeping, if you could believe it. So this is to coach professional cricket, and we went through with a sleep expert how that looks, what that needs to be, how to get there, and diet, light, shade, timing, all these sorts of things. And it was proven that you take that knowledge back and you speak to the players who've done really well at any level. And one of the key aspects is how restful they have been rather than restless. And if they're checking their phone at 12:30, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock because Facebook's pinged or something's gone off, that's not creating a restful sort of space. So that's you've got to be mindful of what works well for any player of any sort. However, mentors, they're everywhere, and sometimes they're not the obvious ones. I'm blessed that I regard most of my more influential and meaningful mentors are women.
Interesting. Nice.
And I'm just blessed that I found a strong cohort of different people from different backgrounds, different nationalities, yet they think differently. And we tend to... The default position for a lot of sports people is just surround yourself with the backslappers, with the cheerleaders. That's okay. That's fine. Yet, if you want to have a wholesome and a good perspective of everything, surround yourself with access to people. And it might be, Rohit, it might be a phone call once every 2 months.
Yeah.
It might be a coffee catch-up once every 6 weeks. It doesn't need to be every single day, because you have to allow time for things to work through. Yet anybody can surround themselves with mentors to help, and that aren't directly related to the sport. that's and also make sure that you always listen to your mother.
Exactly. Yep. Makes sense. So
listen to your mum. Remember the things that your mother told you.
Yep. Yep. Just be disciplined. Eat well, sleep well. I think these are the basic things that my mother has been telling me.
It is basic things. I mean, make sure when you eat,
which are very important. Yep.
You have to have colour on your plate.
Yep.
Yeah. Avoid processed foods. Avoid too much sugar. Balance water. Drink tea. Exercise. Walk.
Yep.
Listen to music. Read books. Sing. Dance.
Yeah. And iron on the pitch.
It's all. You'll find something that works for you.
Agree. But yeah, many great points mentioned. Talking to someone, in your circle. I'm sure, if you are in the cricketing circle, you can always find people who can talk and people who can guide you. And finding a mentor online or offline. As you said, there are many tools out there. If you want to reach out to probably even the professional cricketer, you can still do it. It's not about they may not respond, or some might even respond. So.
In fact, just on that, Rose, just a little tip also for those listeners. Sometimes if you're in an environment where if you're playing cricket, no matter what level, and there's someone who's part of the group who's the scorer, and they're not a player, they're just a scorer, and sometimes scorers are a lifelong volunteer or a helper to the... Quite often, it's actually worth having a quiet conversation with the scorer, because they see everything that goes on.
Yeah.
And sometimes those conversations will bring out from the scorer as the observer that they do see a lot more than numbers on a page or on a screen. So they're often an overlooked source of knowledge because they're just the scorer. Yeah. Yet quite often I've heard of players that have had really, really powerful conversations from that person because the scorer at most times is not judgmental. They're just doing their job. So, when you're looking at that circle, it doesn't need to be the people that you're sitting around the dressing room with having a soft drink or a celebratory drink. It's maybe someone just removed a little bit from there.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, just I would never thought that that is an possible way to get some insight. But certainly, why not, right? And I've seen, I heard where Sachin was mentioning that someone, I think in the hotel room who is serving, preparing his food, or someone was mentioning how he should hold his grip or change the grip of the bat, which changed his entire batting approach. So you never know. As long as the person is, I think, has that mindset to observe, I think you can always learn from them. But thanks for sharing all these interesting advices that I would never even think of. But cool. I think that's your experience speaking, I guess. So, and I also want to touch base quickly on the cricket mentoring, startup or technology platform that you have. Yeah. So can you give us some insight into it, whom does it apply to? Are you more looking to train professional cricketers, or can anyone tap onto it? How does it work?
Look, it's all sorts. So cricket mentoring, so Tom Scollay is the founder of Cricket Mentoring, and Tom's based in Perth. And I first came across, I've been in technology a long time, and it was 2015 when Chris Rogers said, my friend Tom's come back from Middlesex. He didn't make first class cricket over there, and he's started up this thing online called Cricket Mentoring. You're okay to give him a call, and he's doing something with technology. What's it look like? And so we had a few conversations, and back then Tommy was recording with vlogs what he was going through as a cricketer who had not made it at first class level and had come back to Perth and was playing for Melville. Anyway, played for Perth, and we decided that, we want to try and create a platform where anybody can see not only what you're going through, but how you're coaching other players, and not just the technical side of things, but coaching them on the mindset, the emotional skills, the mental skills, and how that sort of all comes together. And we're going to use YouTube, well, initially YouTube, Facebook, Instagram as the platforms. And then it gradually built from there, where it continued on podcasts, interviewing players, we wrote some ebooks, developed some strategies, some white papers, and it's just continued to grow. And now we do tours over to KOC at our partners in Bangalore. Yet the community is very broad. I mean, there's 140,000 on Instagram follow us, 70,000 on YouTube follow us. 30,000 on Facebook. So and we do one-on-one coaching as well. So so anybody can see the sort of work that we do online. But we also have a very strong community where people come together online, and we will introduce, especially Sean Marsh, as people got access to, like that, Greg Shippard. Yet what we're sort of starting to see now, though, Rohit, is that players are starting to come through the Cricket Mentoring Network, and at the moment, the best example is Teague Wiley, who made 100 last week for Western Australia. Well, Teague's been part of the cricket mentoring and been on the tour since he was 14 years old. And he's sort of not just lived that experience with cricket mentoring, helping him through the game, but he's also lived the experience of his development years being in social media, and he's okay with it. So he's not really overwhelmed by what's now unfolding in front of him. Yeah. So, anybody can be just a casual observer and watch of what goes on. Anybody can join the community. They can sign up for some of the professional sort of services we provide, and that's available. And most of our players, it's a real mixture. I mean, we've got players who are still on television playing for various teams or squads around the world, down to aspiring 12-year-old, 13-year-olds who've got talent. Our audience is probably evenly split between Australia, India, and the UK. But it's also the other side of things. So in the community, we're able to give players direct feedback on elements of the game, help them for their planning. So I also forgot, more important, it's not just for players. It's also, we get a lot of interaction with coaches, with team managers, with other people who are connected to the game that don't actually play the game as well, but they've got involvement in the game to teach others, to educate others somehow. Proud of the brand. So Tom's in Perth, myself, I'm in Melbourne, Blake Reed's now in Melbourne as well, and we like to think that we deliver a lot more than just coaching. Yes, we do that, but there's a lot more to it to become a very, very good player if you want to. And probably the last thing there, just pleasingly, is that in recent years we've seen a significant increase in female players coming through. So we're doing a number of specific programs through the winter and through summer, and I think now, not sure the exact percentage, but there are quite a few players in the Western Australia senior women's squad or high-level junior squad that have come through cricket mentoring in some fashion. So
nice.
And just recently, we just took a tour of 20 players to Bangalore, to KOC in September. So that will be ongoing. There will always be one in April, which is around the IPL time of year, and always one in September as well. So we want to give players the first-hand experience of what it's like to go into that environment and immerse themselves fully in cricket to a different level, but also play games on different surfaces with different nets, and be exposed firsthand to what a serious appetite is really like. In fact, I heard the story yesterday, Michaela, who was just on the recent tour as a 17-year-old, came back, and her first few games in Perth did super, super well, and she was elevated into the state team straight away. Oh, cool. Whereas if Michaela, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened, but the alternative was to stay back home and do a normal pre-season. Yet Michaela went to Bangalore and did an intensive 11 days of cricket, came back and has had a really, really good start to the year. So cricket mentor it's an ongoing concern, and we're very proud of what's established there.
Exactly, and that's really cool. And I think that's using the power of technology to create much higher impact. Right, because if you're a coach and if you're coaching in person, let's say you can probably coach like about 10 people, maybe 100 people at maximum. Yeah. But if you're using the technology and if you're talking to people around the world, I think the impact is much bigger. And I can totally see that. Sorry, but in US, that can even be a bigger platform because cricket is evolving a lot. So I think maybe US is the next good destination, since that is particularly in the early stages.
Right, what has allowed me to do personally as a coach here based in Melbourne, so I have customers in Dubai, in the UAE. I have some customers in Auckland and Christchurch who we've never met. Yeah. yet we have an online conversation because we're all okay online now as far as doing these sorts of conversations on camera, and they're able to provide me information either visually or we're talking through plans or preparation. So I'm not teaching them anything like physically, technically with them, yet I'm able to add to them some areas to complement what they're already going through.
Yep.
And in essence, to sort of go back to our point before, I've become that sort of mentor that they've got access to, and not saying everything, some things might not work. That's okay. Yet at least for them, they have sought something extra outside of their immediate circle of contact. And I mean, we can these days we can do that.
Exactly, which is very, very powerful.
Got a very talented left arm spinner from the UAE coming through, Rohit, that I hope in about 3 or 4 years when he makes it, we'll be able to look back on the time we've had together online.
Cool. Yeah. So coming to Australia, or you want? I mean, he'll be playing for a different country.
Oh, different country. I can't see. I would not be the way that he's at the moment. The way his career is going, I would be encouraging him not to come to Australia.
Gotcha. Cool.
I would be encouraging him to stay in the UAE, go to India, and then also emerging, pleasingly, is the quality of competition coming through the USA.
Yeah.
I mean, the standard of cricket now in the USA is rapidly increasing for a whole range of reasons, and I think you'll find, like, just sort of separately, but when I was at Bangalore back in May this year, there were some of my friends there were involved in 2 of the teams in the USA competition minor leagues, and they were still recruiting players to want to go. And I sat in on a couple of recruiting meetings with some names of Australian players, not profile Australian players, but those who are in the sort of grade system, and South Africa were being attuned. And if you were a first grade player in those environments and you had a chance to go play internationally, as in although Adam's coming to the end of his career, that's fine. If you're a player at the start of your career, it's an opportunity to pursue, isn't it?
Exactly. It is a wonderful opportunity, and I think there are just right investment, and it's just there's a lot of for where to go.
Yet the beauty of American competition, Rohit, is that all the games are streamed.
Yeah.
And I can assure you that the Quetta Gladiators, the Lahore Qalandars, the Kolkata Knight Riders, the Mumbai Indians, they've all got talent scouts out there watching, looking for someone to come from somewhere, because they might not put them in the IPL as such, but the Pakistan League, the Caribbean Premier League, they're looking for players.
Yep.
Because they can't all play Ranji Trophy, can they?
Exactly. They cannot play, but as long as they can play some sort of league, I think that's still a big win for them, because that's a wonderful opportunity type one, right? Yeah,
or there's the case where, before I mentioned a player like Shivam Singh. Now, they might decide that Shivam, we want you to play for RCB. That's okay. Yet before you get there, maybe you go and play a few tournaments in other parts of the world, so you get used to what that tournament structure is because, as we know, tournament structure is a very different beast.
Yeah.
Once you introduce travel and all the logistics around that, so I think that's where cricket is very open to looking at where a market like the USA stands getting better. The games are streamed. It's got a big audience. It will have an influence, a massive influence ahead.
Exactly, and since it's very technology centric, and it's a very rich country, so I think it can do a lot of heavy investments, and it will be a wonderful opportunity for many players. Yeah, and yes, I think, but it's interesting to know that people are watching, from KKR or like some other places to scout for players. That's good to know.
Oh, well, it's these franchises that we all know that have come to because of IPL. They're going to become. They'll be beyond that. It's going to be. It's going to continue to grow. There's no reason to think why they won't be as big as a Manchester United or a New England Patriots or a Boston Red Sox when it comes down to it. That there'll be a domestic competition, but there'll also be other areas that feed into that that are important to the ecosystem of the game.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. Cool. I know. I really want to talk about all the technologies, work that you have done in the sports and technology, because that's a very interesting space for me. Because that was my first startup as well, starting some a sort of, technology-based platform in India which didn't work, apparently. And
That's okay.
I can talk all day about it. But that's one area that I'm really keen on, and would love to talk to you on what all you have done and how it has been emerging, and what are the opportunity areas. But I think I'll take it in a different episode, since we're done, since that's a very long conversation. So, and I think I always end this with one question, Andrew.
Please.
And so what are the, can you help us teach something in 2 minutes that took very long time for you to learn?
Yeah. I suppose it comes back to just reflecting upon where you feel you can serve best for others. And for me, that was really making sure that I found a quiet space with a book and a pen, and I wrote things down, reflected on things, and which meant that before I spoke or gave guidance, I'd thought deeply about something, and I also feel, right, that made me a better listener. In my early days of coaching, it was far too much me telling people what to do and how to do it. I think as coaches and mentors, we are better off just helping the player understand the situation and then stand back.
Yeah.
And I think I might have said it before, but I get this emphasised by Greg Shippard quite often, who's one of the most successful coaches in the Australian ecosystem, that sometimes the best work that you do is when you're doing no work.
Yeah.
And doing no work means that you've got to have that ability to step back, be silent, and be confident that what you've done around you is in a good environment to work. So and that comes, just to cap off, a pen, piece of paper, a quiet space, and just let it come from there. Plan.
Yeah, cool. And I think that's a wonderful leadership lesson as well. And thanks for sharing it. That is very valuable and insightful. Again, thank you very much, Andrew. I would love to speak for some more time, but I think we also have some sort of limitations and other works to do.
Yes.
And it has been such a great and very insightful conversation. And thanks for being open to share all this information. And thanks for your willingness to educate others, via this podcast. I think, I'd love to do more episodes, and would love to do more talking and learn from you, and help others learn from you through this podcast. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Right, thank you, and thank you for your listeners, and appreciate those who've taken the time to be here, and you for making the effort to put this on. So it's important that you're doing your extra bit for the community, the ecosystem, and very grateful for that. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that. I think it's the least that I can do, since I've taken so much from the game, and this is what I'm passionate about. But yeah, exciting to be involved and surrounding myself with very passionate people. Cool. Thanks for that. Cool. Thanks again, Andrew. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Rohit.
Yeah.